My grandmother never calls after dark. If she needs me, she knocks on the wall between her room and my parents' living room, or she waits until morning. That's how it's always been. Quiet, courteous, predictable, like the way she folds napkins even when it's just soup. So when my phone lit up at 12:03 a.m., the screen spelling Eleanor, I felt the first stitch of dread. "Grandma?" I answered, stepping into the cold stairwell of my apartment building to hear better. Denver sleeps hard in January. The hallway hummed with radiator heat and silence. "What's wrong?" Her voice came in shredded by panic I had never heard from her. "Daniel, don't go home." A breath, a tremor. "Please, sweetheart. Trust me. Go somewhere else. Now." My mouth went dry. Why? Did something happen to Mom? To Dad? Just promise me. Her whisper splintered. "Don't go back to your house tonight. I'll explain later." A door opened on the floor above. Somewhere, a neighbor's dog shook its collar and settled again. I pressed the phone tighter. "Grandma, tell me what's going on." Her answer was a prayer disguised as a command. "Go, Daniel." The line clicked. She had never hung up on me in her life. I stared at the screen long enough for it to go black, for my reflection to stare back, unshaven, exhausted, a software developer who spent too many nights debugging and not enough sleeping. Then I grabbed my coat, my keys, nothing else. If she said run, I'd run. I texted Sean, my coworker, who lived 6 blocks away. "Emergency. Can I crash?" His reply came in 3 dots and a heartbeat. "Doors open. Code 275. By the time I reached the street, the air had that deep night bite, the kind that chews at your ears and fingers. I climbed into my hatchback, started the engine, and pulled away from the curb. In the rear view, I could see the faint smear of the mountains against the sky. The city was a bracelet of orange lights. I didn't turn toward my house. I turned toward safety. Sean's building was warm, cluttered, smelling faintly of coffee and machine oil from the 3D printer he kept on his kitchen table. He was standing in the doorway barefoot, hair sticking up like he'd lost a fight with a pillow. "Dude, you look like someone chased you." "I don't know." My voice came out thin. "My grandma called. She said don't go home. That's all." He didn't ask questions. That's why he was my friend. He just pointed at the couch. "Crash. We'll figure it out in the morning." But I couldn't lie down. I sat on the edge of the sofa with my coat still on, phone in my hand, watching the seconds roll over to 12:22, then 12:37, then 12:49. Every minute without a second call stretched tight. I tried to imagine what danger had a shape big enough to scare Eleanor Carter, 82. Bones like twigs, but a mind like a steel trap. She'd out-argued bank managers and doctors and my father, which is 3 species of impossible. I almost called back. That's when the siren started. At first, it was just a rumor of sound rolling through the neighborhood. Then another. Then a chorus, the kind of layered wail that lifts the hair on your neck because it isn't going to pass by, it's going somewhere with purpose. I stood, phone sliding from my palm to the cushion. Sean met my eyes from the kitchen doorway. "Do you hear?" We both moved to the window. Red and blue strobed off the glass of parked cars across the street, flickered like a heartbeat against brick. The sound gathered, focused, narrowed, toward the southeast, toward Parkview, toward the little corner of Denver I had bought with overtime and weekends, and the part of my 20s you're supposed to spend being careless. "Daniel," Sean said, voice careful. "Isn't that my block?" I said. I didn't remember deciding to run. Only the door banging against the wall and my feet hammering stairs 2 at a time and winter air hitting my lungs like a fist. I drove without thinking, the city peeling past in streaks. At the last turn, I could see it, smoke like a black flag, orange licking at the sky, silhouettes of neighbors gathered barefoot in coats over pajamas. I parked crooked, left the door open. The heat slapped me as I pushed through the crowd. What used to be my house, my first honest thing, the little craftsman with the blue door and the crooked porch light I never got around to fixing, was a furnace. The roof glowed. The windows were teeth. Firefighters moved with a choreography of urgency, unrolling hose, shouting commands over the roar. Someone touched my sleeve, Mrs. Klein from next door. Hair in pink curlers, tears carving clean tracks through ash on her cheeks. "Thank God you weren't inside," she whispered. "Thank God." The smell hit me next, beyond the char and smoke. Something chemical, hot and obscene.
Gasoline.
My vision tunneled. I heard my name from a distance, an official voice cutting through the chaos. "Are you the owner?" A man in a reflective jacket, Captain Ruiz, face streaked, eyes clinical. He waited only long enough for my nod. "Anyone else inside?"
No.
I wasn't home. "Did you leave anything running? Stove? Candles?"
No.
He sniffed the air like a hunter. "We'll investigate. Right now, you need to stay behind the line. Behind the line, where your life burns and you're only allowed to watch." A thought rose through the smoke. Terrible and simple, Marcus. Earlier that afternoon, my brother had stood in my doorway, pupils big as coins, asking for money he called an opportunity, and I called debt. When I said no, his mouth twisted into something I still might see in the mirror if I stared too long. "You'll regret this," he'd said. The fire popped, wood caving in on itself with a scream. I tasted ash. The world turned to heat and siren light, and the feeling of a floor giving way beneath you while you're still standing. I stepped back, fished my phone out with shaking hands, and dialed the only person who had not failed me tonight. Grandma answered on the first ring. "Are you safe?" she asked. I swallowed. "Yes." Her breath hitched once with relief. Then her voice steadied.
Good.
"Listen to me, Daniel. Do not go to your parents' house tonight. Do not call your father.
Call Sean.
Call the police. And in the morning, come to me. I have something you need to hear." "What did you see?" I whispered. "A beat." When she spoke again, the steel was back in her words. "I saw everything." Cut to black. Title card burns in. He said, "You'll regret this." He had no idea. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 36 years old, a software developer in Denver, Colorado. People at work know me as reliable, the guy who fixes the code at 2 a.m. and still shows up for the 9 o'clock stand-up. But if you ask me about my family, reliability doesn't mean much. Because in my house, reliability was mistaken for invisibility. My father, Richard Carter, was a mechanic for most of his life. Now he's retired, spending his days boasting about the golden years, about the customers who trusted him with their engines, about how hard he worked to provide for his family. The truth?
He worked hard, yes.
But he always worked harder to protect his youngest son, Marcus. If Marcus wrecked a car, he's still learning. If Marcus skipped school, boys will be boys. If Marcus screamed at mom, he's just frustrated. It didn't matter what Marcus did. Dad always found a reason why it wasn't really his fault. My mother, Linda, works part-time as a school secretary. She's sweet with strangers, gentle with students, but with us, she's fragile, like glass. She bends to whoever's loudest, and in our family, that's always been Marcus. Whenever I told her about the unfairness, she'd sigh and say the same thing. "He's younger, Daniel. He needs more help than you." I used to believe her, until I realized help was just another word for excuse. Marcus, my younger brother by 5 years. From the moment he could walk, he learned he could take. And take. And take. I remember one winter when Mom bought him new shoes. I was 16, my soles worn thin, tape holding the seams together. "You'll get new ones next paycheck," she promised. But Marcus strutted out the door in fresh sneakers, kicking snow into my face with every step. At 16, I also started working part-time to help pay bills. By 18, I was juggling 2 jobs and still studying, while Marcus got pats on the back for scoring a single goal in a high school soccer game he later skipped half the season for. I graduated college with a degree in computer science. Dad's response?
Good. Don't get cocky.
When Marcus dropped out of community college 6 months later, Dad wrapped him in sympathy. He'll find his path. That path? Bars, poker tables, and borrowed money. Mostly borrowed from me. I gave him money countless times.
Rent.
Car repairs. Business ideas. Every single time, I knew where it went. Blackjack, roulette, whatever pit would swallow it whole. And every single time I hoped, stupidly, that it would be the one that made him grow up. Instead, he sneered. Big brothers got cash. Might as well share. But I wasn't rich. I was tired. I had clawed my way into stability, every dollar earned with hours of code and caffeine. And I wanted just once to live without feeling like I owed someone something. The only person who ever seemed to understand was Grandma Eleanor. She's lived with my parents since Grandpa passed. 82 years old, body frail, mind sharper than any blade. She saw the cracks in our family before I ever found the words. On long summer afternoons when I was a boy, she'd pull me onto her lap and tell me stories about Grandpa. How he worked with his hands until they bled, how he never once asked for praise, how he always put family first. "You're like him," she told me once, smoothing my hair. Hardworking, patient, the kind who carries weight without dropping it. I never felt worthy of the comparison, but her words stuck. They were the lighthouse that guided me through the storms of my family's favoritism. That lighthouse felt very far away the afternoon Marcus came to my door. His hoodie was disheveled, eyes red, smell of alcohol clinging to him like smoke. He barged in before I could stop him, collapsed onto my sofa, and said casually, "Bro, I need cash." Big opportunity. I didn't ask what. I already knew. I tried to be calm. I reminded him of every time I'd helped before, every chance wasted, every lie about change. My voice rose, steady but final. "No, Marcus. Not this time."
His face twisted.
The smirk curdled into something dark. "You'll regret this, Daniel," he hissed. His eyes had that wild, cornered animal gleam. Then he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I stood there, fists clenched, heart pounding, telling myself it was just another tantrum. He'd come back in a week, begging again. But as I watched the blue door swing on its hinges, a chill slid down my spine. Something in his eyes told me this wasn't a threat I could ignore. That night, my phone buzzed.
It was Mom.
Her voice carried reproach sharper than any knife. "Marcus called me. Said you refused to help him. He's your brother, Daniel. You have to care about him." I bit back the scream clawing at my throat. How many times have I cared, Mom? How many times have I given him money, only to watch it vanish into booze and cards? She sighed, the same sigh I'd heard my entire life. "Marcus has had a hard time.
He's not like you."
Dad called minutes later, his voice iron and command. "Don't be stubborn, son. Family comes first. If you don't help Marcus, who will?" Family comes first. The phrase that excused everything. I hung up, stared at the blue door. The same door Marcus had walked through, eyes blazing. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if loving my family meant I was walking straight into my own destruction. By dawn, the fire was out. What remained of my house smoldered under a gray January sky. The air reeked of wet ash and gasoline, a sour mix that clung to my clothes and hair. Firefighters moved through the ruins with poles, poking through the rubble like archaeologists of disaster. A fire investigator, Captain Ruiz, told me it looked deliberate. "Accelerant," he said. "Gasoline, likely. Not an accident." His eyes searched mine. Anyone who might hold a grudge? The name sat bitter on my tongue. Marcus. But suspicion isn't proof. And Marcus was family, which meant I knew exactly what would happen if I said it aloud. They'd protect him. They always did. I didn't wait for the police to investigate. I needed answers. I needed him to look me in the eye. By the time I reached my parents' house, the sun was bleeding through the blinds. Their house was warm, lit, alive, the cruel opposite of the blackened skeleton I'd just left behind. I pushed through the front door without knocking. The heat hit me first, then the familiar smell of coffee and Linda's lavender detergent. My mother jolted from her chair in the living room, cup clattering in the saucer. "Daniel?" Her eyes widened at my smoke-stained jacket, my raw face. "What happened?" "My house," I rasped. "It's gone. Burned to the ground." Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God." She turned, shouting for my father. "Richard, come quick." Dad appeared in the hallway, adjusting his glasses. His brows furrowed when he saw me, but before he could speak, I was already climbing the stairs. "Daniel," Mom called after me. "Where are you?" "Where do you think?" I barked. At the end of the hall was my old bedroom. Only now it was Marcus's. I didn't knock. I shoved the door open. He was sprawled on the bed, phone glowing in his hand, eyes heavy from sleep, or maybe from something stronger. His hair was a mess, his hoodie wrinkled. When he saw me, his lips curled into that familiar smirk, half amusement, half disdain. Well, look who it is. Big brother, storming in like he owns the place. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles burned. "Did you do it?" He tilted his head, feigning confusion. "Do what?" My voice dropped into something I didn't recognize. "Did you pour gasoline on my house? Did you light the match?" For the first time, a flicker crossed his face. Panic. It was gone in a heartbeat, replaced by mockery. "Got any proof?" "Didn't think so." He sat up, leaning closer, his grin sharp. "Don't slander me, Danny boy. That's not very brotherly." I stepped closer, the heat from my rage matching the fire that had taken everything I built. "You threatened me yesterday. You said I'd regret it. And now my house is gone." He shrugged, eyes glittering. "Coincidence. Or maybe karma.
Ever think of that?
Behind me, footsteps thundered up the stairs. Mom burst into the doorway, eyes darting between us. "Daniel, what's going on?" Dad appeared right after, crossing his arms. His jaw was set, already siding with the son who hadn't lost anything. "My house burned down last night," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "And Marcus did it." Mom gasped. "No, Daniel, don't say that." She rushed to Marcus, putting a hand on his shoulder like he was still a boy needing comfort. "He would never." Marcus snorted. "He's lost it, Mom. No proof, just accusations." "Mom," I snapped, my throat raw. "Grandma heard him. She told me not to go home. She heard him talking about gasoline." That silenced her for a heartbeat. Her hand trembled. But then Dad's voice cut through like a blade. "That's enough." He glared at me. "Don't accuse your brother without evidence. He's your blood. Families don't tear each other apart." I laughed then, but it was bitter and broken. "Family? You mean the kind where one son destroys everything and the other gets blamed for noticing?" Dad's eyes hardened. "Go home, Daniel. We'll sort this out later." I pointed at Marcus, my hand shaking. "Home? I don't have a home anymore." My voice cracked, hot with grief. "And it's because of him." Marcus leaned back on the bed, smirking. "Cry harder, brother. You've got nothing. Just ashes." Mom sobbed into her hands. Dad's stare was ice. And Marcus, my own flesh and blood, looked at me with victory. I turned and walked out before my rage swallowed me whole. Each step down the hallway felt heavier than the last. The family photos lining the walls stared back, smiling lies. But as I passed Grandma Eleanor's room, a soft voice called out, "Daniel." I stopped. Her door was cracked open, warm light spilling through. She sat in her wheelchair, waiting, her frail hands folded, but her eyes sharp as always. "I heard everything," she whispered. I stepped inside, my chest tightening. Her gaze held mine. "You're not wrong, and you're not alone." I didn't go back to Sean's apartment right away. I sat in my car in front of my parents' house, forehead pressed to the steering wheel, my grandmother's words echoing. "You're not wrong, and you're not alone." For 36 years, I had carried the weight of silence, swallowing unfairness, enduring their blind devotion to Marcus. But tonight, as I stared at the dashboard, smoke still clinging to my clothes, I realized silence had only given him permission to destroy me. If I wanted justice, I couldn't just shout. I needed proof. Sean opened his door before I even knocked. His eyes flicked over me, reading the exhaustion, the fury barely contained. "Come inside." The warmth of his apartment was almost unbearable after the cold. He shoved a mug of coffee into my hand and let me talk. I told him about the fire, about confronting Marcus, about my parents' refusal to even consider the truth. Sean didn't interrupt. He just listened, jaw tightening with every detail. When I finished, he leaned forward. "You need evidence, Daniel. Hard evidence. Otherwise, it's your word against his, and we both know how your parents play that game." I rubbed my eyes.
How?
"The fire's already over. He's not dumb enough to leave a trail." Sean smirked faintly. "You'd be surprised what guys like Marcus leave behind. I know someone, Victor Chong. He's a private investigator. Helped my cousin nail a fraud case last year. If anyone can connect Marcus to that fire, it's him." I blinked.
A pie?
That sounds extreme. Not as extreme as losing your house and getting gaslit by your whole family. The truth of that landed like a punch. Sean scribbled a number on the back of a receipt and slid it across the table.
Call him.
"If you don't fight back now, Daniel, you'll lose more than a house. You'll lose yourself." The next morning, I stood outside a brick office building downtown. The sign read Victor Chong, Investigations. Inside, Victor looked nothing like I expected. No trench coat, no fedora. Just a middle-aged man in a crisp shirt, glasses sliding down his nose, eyes sharp with the kind of patience that made you squirm. "Mr. Carter," he said, shaking my hand with surprising strength. Sean filled me in.
Sit.
I told him everything. The threats, the fire, my grandmother's warning. He took notes without expression, tapping his pen at keywords: gasoline, threat, jealousy. When I finished, he leaned back. "You're right. Your brother's sloppy. Arson's rarely perfect. We start with gas stations, receipts, cameras. If he bought fuel in a container, it'll show. Then witnesses, neighbors, anyone who saw him near your place that night." I hesitated. "But the police, won't they handle that?" "They'll investigate," he said evenly. "But arson cases die without evidence, and family ties muddy the water. If you want justice, don't rely on hope. Rely on proof." His words sent a chill through me.
Proof.
That was what I had never had. Not for the shoes, not for the favoritism, not for the decades of being second place to Marcus. But now, maybe I could. That evening, Victor called. "You're right. Gas station on Colfax. 2 hours before the fire. Security footage shows your brother buying 2 red containers of gasoline. Cash, but the clerk remembered him. Loud, impatient, stank of booze." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles whitened.
Proof.
Real, tangible proof. Victor continued. "Also, your neighbor Mrs. Klein already told the fire investigator she saw Marcus near your porch around 9. I'll get her statement on record." I exhaled for what felt like the first time since the flames. "Thank you." Victor's voice softened just slightly. "Don't thank me yet. Men like your brother, they double down when cornered. Be ready." That night, back at Sean's, I lay on the sofa staring at the ceiling.
My house was gone.
My parents had chosen Marcus over me yet again. But for the first time, I wasn't paralyzed. I had allies. I had direction. I pulled my wallet from my pocket and found the photo Grandma had pressed into my hand years ago, me as a boy between her and Grandpa, smiling by a lake. "You're like him," she had said. "Hardworking, patient, the kind who carries weight without dropping it." I traced my grandfather's face with my thumb. "I won't drop it, Grandma," I whispered. "Not this time." The next few days blurred into a haze of coffee, phone calls, and meetings with Victor. My job gave me personal leave. I told them it was a family emergency. That was true, just not the kind HR could understand. Victor worked fast. Too fast, almost for my heart to keep up. 3 days after our first meeting, he slid a manila folder across his desk. Inside, photographs, receipts, testimony. "Gas station, 8:47 p.m., he said, tapping the first page. Marcus on grainy CCTV, his hoodie half-zipped, face unmistakable. 2 red containers in his arms. He slammed them on the counter, paid in crumpled bills. The timestamp was less than 3 hours before the flames devoured my house. Next page, Mrs. Klein's statement notarized. She'd seen Marcus loitering near my porch that same night. Muttering, she wrote, something about teaching Daniel a lesson. My chest tightened. Victor flipped another page. And this one's gold. It was a report from a bartender on Colfax. Marcus had stumbled in after midnight, reeking of gasoline. He bragged to a friend. That'll show my brother. He thinks he's better than me. The bartender kicked him out, but the friend repeated the words under oath. The folder felt heavy in my hands. Years of injustice condensed into proof. That evening, I drove past the ruins of my house. The snow had melted into slush around the blackened foundation. Steam rose from the wreckage like the earth itself was mourning. But for once, I didn't feel powerless. I had weapons now, and Marcus didn't even know it. The next morning, I went to see Grandma. She sat by the window in her wheelchair, knitting with hands that shook but eyes that didn't. I've been waiting, she said softly. I handed her the folder. She read in silence, lips pressed tight. When she finally looked up, her eyes glistened. I knew it. I heard him that night, Daniel. Swearing, ranting. But they would never have believed me. They'll believe this, I said. She took my hand, her skin paper-thin but warm. Be careful. Truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes, it burns more bridges than fire ever could. I squeezed her fingers gently. Grandma, those bridges are already ash. Victor set up a meeting with the fire investigator, Captain Ruiz. We walked into the precinct together, the folder tucked under Victor's arm. Ruiz looked skeptical at first, another family feud, another brother blaming a brother. But when he saw the gas station footage, his eyebrows rose.